Ladies and gentlemen, a couple years ago, the Times and everyone reported that Trump only paid $35 million in taxes. So before we get to today's blockbuster, amazing report, because, the Atlantic just didn't do enough with their fantasies and their absurd claims that Trump said something really bad, really horrible. And nobody believed the Atlantic report, so now they have to make things up. They have to literally fabricate this elaborate world around Trump because they have nothing on the man. That's why they said that he worked with Russia based on a dossier Clinton purchased. That's why he said people associated with Trump said he said something. And now that's why they're contradicting themselves. When you just look a couple years back, Trump paid about $38 million in federal taxes in 2005. March 14th, 2017, new NPR, Washington Post, Trump paid $38 million in taxes in 2005. The New York Times, Trump paid $38 million in federal income tax. This was in 2017, so they said $38 million in federal income tax. CNN, Trump paid $38 million in income tax. Reuters, Trump paid $38 million in income tax. Bloomberg, Trump paid $38 million on $150 million in income return show. This is Bloomberg. So that is... And then you have, of course, MSNBC's exclusive look at Trump's 2005 tax return. They're so obsessed with nonsense. He never worked with Russia. He has paid taxes. If he didn't pay the amount that you think, the Democrats think he should have paid, then they should change the tax laws. The IRS has his tax returns. He is not in trouble with the IRS or anyone. Nobody talked about him breaking the law when it came to tax. They got Al Capone on taxes. If Trump wasn't paying taxes, they would have gotten him already. But see, they fabricate and have to make things up. So they stated, it was all throughout the news in 2017, Trump only paid $38 million in income tax. Now today, of course, because, they have to make things up, an editor's note on the Trump tax investigation. First of all, these are not accountants. These are apoplectic Democratic Party loyalists who are said to be journalists for the New York Times. They're desperately trying to show that Trump is corrupt based on an investigation that they performed without having the knowledge of an accountant, or without having the expertise that accountants have. So the New York Times has examined decades of President Trump's financial records. Why would I care? Why would I care what the New York Times did? Why would I care about the New York Times' opinion on matters related to accounting? These are journalists that are in the tank for the Democratic Party, number one. We still have the emails that they wrote. They have friendly journalists at the New York Times. And they made statements in the campaign and DNC emails. We have to tell the media this. And then they had a dinner party. This was in Politico. They always wanted Trump, so they elevated President Trump. They were literally telling the media to elevate President Trump. This was after cheating Bernie Sanders. This was after Clinton had a solid electoral college lead, according to the New York Times. And then you had Amy Klobuchar talking about how polls should indicate that that people are voting for Biden, who will eventually be replaced by Clinton, but people are voting for Biden. Oh, and by the way, the geniuses out there say, the mail-in ballots have already been printed. The Electoral College, I've already spoken about this endlessly. There was an article in Politico. Democrats call for a contingency plan. I think that's almost the verbatim headline of the article, where one of the professors. There was a scare in 2016 in September, where they were thinking for a moment of replacing Clinton because of a possible health issue. The Electoral College works in the following manner. It doesn't matter if Biden drops out a week before November 3rd. All of the votes would go to Clinton if she replaced him. when she replaces him. That's the way the electors would handle the situation. The electors would look at the last person standing in the Democratic Party and give them all of Biden's votes. That's in Politico. I spoke about that article endlessly the past 2 weeks. But here, so yeah, Amy Klobuchar was like, oh yeah, the people are voting in droves because they want Trump out of office. Like, no, President Trump did pretty well. He won like 3 states just based on, he would have won 3 states just based on the mail-in ballots and the absentee ballots, according to the Washington Post. But the polls were completely off. That's a whole other issue. The polls were dreadful. They said that Clinton had a chance in Texas. She was in Arizona because she thought she would win Arizona. Anyway, that's a whole other story here. An editor's note on the Trump tax investigation. The New York Times has examined decades of President Trump's financial records, assembling the most comprehensive picture yet of his business dealings. So, like, this is a headline, and this is text based on pure opinion. Well, we've done a really great job, and nobody has ever gotten closer to the truth than we have. Yeah, that's your opinion. You provide within this article 0 evidence for anything. Meanwhile, there's a foundation that has not been audited yet. And there's a foundation, according to accountants, who look at philanthropic organizations that say, well, you know what? This philanthropic organization is getting money from everyone from Uranium One to wealthy individuals. So that's really bizarre. Let's just read this here. Today we are publishing the results of an examination of decades of personal and corporate tax records for President Trump and his businesses in the United States and abroad. Where did they get these tax records? The records stretch from his days as a high-profile New York real estate investor through the beginning of his time in the White House. Okay. A team of New York Times reporters, okay, let me fix that. A team of Democratic Party loyalists, masquerading as reporters and journalists who work for the New York Times, has pored over his information. Are these accountants? No, these are journalists. Has pored over his information to assemble the most comprehensive picture of the president's finances and business dealings to date. And we will continue our reporting and publish additional articles. Well, won't this swing the election? This is election interference, isn't it? Oh, that's right. That doesn't exist for Trump. We are not making the records themselves public. Oh, okay, because we do not want to jeopardize our sources. Oh, I didn't know this. We are not making the records themselves public because we do not want to jeopardize our sources. You keep your sources, New York Times. You don't want to jeopardize the Loch Ness Monster and the Wolfman and the Tooth Fairy and Santa's elves. And you don't want to jeopardize extraterrestrials that live on other planets. And unicorns, and the Yeti. Did I say the Yeti? You don't want to jeopardize these sources, super secret sources, or the same people who gave the Atlantic their nonsense and fabricated story about Trump. So we are not making the record themselves public because we do not want to jeopardize our sources who live on Jupiter and Saturn, who have taken enormous personal risk to help inform the public. Oh, gosh, this is just like, I don't know, Julian Assange, who should be free. Oh, that's right, you don't like that, Democrats, because he actually published actual pristine documents. You would much rather have, we are not making the records themselves public because we do not want to jeopardize our sources. Gosh, New York Times, you are amazing. You are amazing. You know, sources say that you're linked to communist organizations, but gosh, sources have been wrong. I mean, those are made up and fabricated. Where's the evidence of that? We are publishing, I was actually just joking about that, but here, we are publishing this report because we believe citizens should understand as much as possible about their leaders and representatives, but you're not publishing the evidence that you claim exists. My God almighty. This is the worst example of journalism This is just as bad. This is just as bad as the Atlantic article. The DNC and campaign emails warped their entire minds, because here you have a published record that everyone talked about, the Times, Washington Post, of the actual words, the actual emails of the DNC in all their corrupt glory. And it was too much for them. So now they have to make things up. And now they're like, people come out of the woodwork. There was an ellipsis in Trump's transcript, and that ellipsis meant wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Hey, want to help me swing the election? And so they make this fabricated nonsense up. We are publishing this report because we believe citizens should understand as much as possible about their leaders, even though you want to keep your sources private, and you're not publishing the evidence, which almost certainly doesn't exist, because you've been known to fabricate stories, just like CNN and the Washington Post and MSNBC. There's like a list of at least 10 associated with Russia alone that were categorically and patently false. But don't tell that to Democrats. They'll believe anything. They'll even believe that Facebook ads swung the election, which Facebook ads have never swung anyone. Even when Facebook ads are selling something, nobody even buys. It's like a waste of money. It's always been anyway. Their priorities, their experiences, and also their finances. Every president since mid-1970s has tax information public. Okay, the Clintons, by the way, their taxes, their true finances are in that foundation, not in their tax returns. But anyway, the tradition, read Peter Schweizer's book, Clinton Cash. But anyway, of course, that's bad. The New York Times, good. Clinton Cash, bad. The tradition ensures that an official with the power to shake markets and change policy does not seek to benefit financially from his actions. Yes, Trump is benefiting financially with all the fantastic press. This is what I don't understand. They're like, he's never going to leave. He's never going to leave. He's benefiting financially. You could not find an individual on this planet that has had more negative, apoplectic, seething, fuming, hysterical, fanatical, maniacal press coverage. So anything the man does, it's like basically linked to Satan. And even like that would be even better than how they treat President Trump. But here, Mr. Trump, one of the wealthiest presidents in the nation's history. He has to be the wealthiest president, but anyway. Or maybe the founding fathers, but here. Has broken with that practice. Mr. Trump has said he wanted to make the tax returns public, but has never done so. In fact, he has fought relentlessly to hide them. Because he was being audited, and has falsely asserted that he could not release them because he was being audited by the Internal Revenue Service. Why would you, if you're audited by the IRS, why would you then release the taxes to a bunch of reporters that just want to see your downfall? Like, the New York Times is interesting. It's really hilarious. They're writing from the vantage point that President Trump exists in this lab, in this, like, perfect world where the entire planet's not trying to accuse him of working with Russia. And so they have made so many false statements. Like, they say Trump lied. Nobody lied more than media. Nobody. Almost every single day, there were articles that proved to be completely false. He never worked with Russia. There was never any evidence that he did. There was never any reason to be suspicious because Clinton and the Democrats purchased or outsourced all the alleged evidence. Then you have, he tried to interfere in the election by investigating President Trump, by strong-arming President Zelensky. President Zelensky himself stated that that wasn't the case. The Ukrainian president himself and his predecessor, President Poroshenko, stated that was not the case, categorically not the case. They still impeached Trump. So you're dealing with people who, why don't people in the New York Times, I would love to know, all the high-ups in the New York Times, where are they getting their money? I mean, can we audit them? Can the National Review or the Federalist or the Daily Caller audit their taxes? I mean, they help shape public opinion. They're very influential in the country. How are they getting their money? Who is giving them an incentive to have such a liberal viewpoint on everything? I would love to know how their tax returns correlate to their view of the world. So, see how that works? But they would never, ever allow that. But with Trump, peace between Israel and the UAE and Bahrain and Serbia and Kosovo, diplomatic relations, first president to step foot in North Korea to begin détente between North and South Korea. You get these foreign policy officials don't like Trump and they're saying that they're voting for Biden. Well, then these foreign policy officials are complete imbeciles. Look what he's done. He's accomplished literally more than President Obama and Bush have accomplished in 16 years prior to Trump. So, and then he ended the war in Afghanistan. He removed Americans from Syria. He's removing soldiers from Iraq. This is exactly the president that I want. See, unlike progressives who say, well, one day when the Messiah comes, we'll get Medicare for all. I'm getting what I want from President Trump. A fantastic president, and as a Jewish American, a president who is very supportive of Israel. You can disagree if you want. Go ahead. I don't care. If you're on the left and you don't like Israel, or you're saying, oh my God, that's fine. That's your vantage point. I'm getting a president who is doing exactly what I want, bringing home what really drives me is I want an end to counterinsurgency conflicts, regime changes, interventions, and President Trump is that president. And he signed prison reform legislation. And I want him to go up against very corrupt intelligence officials who set him up and framed him. And we had, like I said, record low unemployment. He signed the First Step Act. He made sure that on colleges that make anti-Semitic statements, that they don't get federal funding, the universities, whether it's organizations within the universities or professors or whatever. So, and a Shana Tova, and to the Jewish viewers, thank you so very much, everyone, for your support and kind words. But here, our latest findings build on our previous reporting. The previous reporting said he paid $38 million in taxes. So, the records show a significant gap between what President Trump has said to the public and what he has disclosed to federal authorities. So this is nonsense. Let's just take a screenshot here. So we are not making the record. We are not making the records themselves public. This is hilarious. We are not making the records themselves public because we do not want to jeopardize our sources. Right. You're not making the records public because under scrutiny, the crayons and the photocopies, whatever, the whole thing, they don't have evidence. Okay, they impeached Trump because a couple of academics and people within the government said he did something. They never had direct evidence. They investigated Trump with the Mueller probe and prior to the Mueller probe because a whole bunch of people within the intelligence services said he did something without evidence. And they were very honest. They never had evidence. New York Times says, he's not paying any taxes at all. And eventually they go on to say that he paid no taxes. So here, New York Times, Trump paid $750 in U.S. income tax in 2017, according to AP. 2016 and 2017. Okay. He goes from $38 million in 2005 to $750 in 2016. As soon, the government will be paying him money, and what else? I mean, just the natural progression in all of this is soon the U.S. government will owe him hundreds of millions of dollars and will be in debt to Trump more so than even China. So that's where it's heading. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not journalism. Journalism is, for example, let's use Watergate. A break-in occurred, so we're going to teach you, New York Times. Going to give you a little lesson on journalism. Okay, a break-in occurred. There was a source that basically gave Woodward and Bernstein all the information about the break-in and the cover-up. Then they found out that the president was linked to a cover-up on a crime that actually happened. Okay, the source gave information to reporters on a specific event that was then The motivation was covered up by the president because the specific event, a criminal act, was supposed to have helped the president in some manner. And oh my God, the public trust was lost. That's journalism. But even that was only because a top-level FBI agent, Mark Felt, gave Woodward and Bernstein all the evidence and all the information. And that source was an actual source. And Woodward knew this man for a long time prior to Watergate. So then that's a whole other story. But that story was literally given to both of them. And that source was a legitimate source because turned out everything was accurate about the criminal event that took place. A specific event took place. Okay. With Trump, they don't have a specific event. He's been in the public eye for 30 years or 40 years. They don't have anything on him. He was, NBC paid him like $300 million or $230 million to $300 million for a show that all these liberals who claim they don't like him watched every week. And then all the celebrities that claim they're going up against him and they're fighting him and they don't like him, they were on his show. Okay? So anyway, give me your thoughts below. It's pretty unbelievable how sad and pathetic and weak the media can't touch him. Because there's nothing really to go after. They don't like his personality, but people aren't voting on personality. Madam Secretary and Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Chuck Schumer and Jerry Nadler aren't going to win contests pertaining to personality. Be here at 9 p.m. Pacific, ladies, and 9:30 p.m. 9 to 9:30. I'll probably start at 9:30, but be here around 9 p.m. Pacific because the link will be up for the live stream this evening. And ladies and gentlemen, President Trump is going 8 years. Give me your thoughts below. If you want to support my voice long term, my Patreon is below. Thank you very much, everybody. I'll see you in several hours for the live stream on this channel. Subscribe to H.A. Goodman's other channel right now. Thank you.